No problem. Kit is also not so technically sound. He is texting me saying, "Hey, I can't get on," but I gave him some notes, so hopefully he'll figure it out.
Maybe the kids can educate him.
Yeah, exactly. The kids. I don't know. He's very, very hard to educate.
So he's like Lee then.
Let me text you.
You guys see the professional in uniform today, right? This guy just,
Oh yeah, you got the whole badge and blues.
Somebody had to come to work today,
There
but
we go.
we'll forgive him and move on.
I like it. I'm gonna text Kit real quick.
Awesome.
So Paul, do you have a helicopter pad on top of your residence?
Yeah, we do. I've never seen a helicopter land on it.
Wait, even when the big chief was staying there, he didn't land it?
He didn't stay there.
Oh, okay.
He stayed down the street from them.
I stand corrected. I knew it was close by though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Only the exclusive of the exclusive stay over there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There he is.
Oh,
Is that
Kit.
Kit?
And he has a green screen. Look at that.
How you doing, buddy?
Oh yeah, he made
Is
it.
that a gamer's chair, Kit?
You know it.
All right.
Wait, how old are you, Kit? Never mind. Don't answer that.
Turns 13 next week.
Oh, Miguel, he's your age.
Hilarious.
As you can tell, we keep it fun here, y'all.
Yeah.
Hi, Mercy. How are you?
Mm-hmm.
How are you?
Wow.
Good. And you?
Let me see
Wait,
your
Mercy
teeth.
and
Smile.
Val-
Let me see your teeth.
Huh?
Let me see your teeth. Smile. Wow, your teeth are looking great. Look at you.
Hello, Valerie.
Thank you. I have a Colgate smile. Sorry.
You got the Colgate smile.
Hi.
Hi, Valerie. How are you?
Good. And you, sir?
Are you over from crying over Rich the Kid from last week?
We don't talk about that.
That was the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen.
She was crying for weeks, sir. No, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. Lying. She's lying. She's lying.
No, that was super cute. Super cute.
What?
So you take your word as gospel for that she was crying for a whole week.
That's not true.
Hi, Ureli.
Oh, that's Olaf. Okay.
Hi, Ureli. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. How many books have you read today?
About one.
One book already? Man.
Man.
But it's only 2 o'clock. You got some time.
Well, it is 6 minutes after the hour, guys. So we're gonna get started with our guests here, and everyone else is just gonna, drag on in. But we're at 16 participants, so I say that's good to go. So today we have 3 honored guests. I'm dubbing them the 3 wise men, 3 guys that I know, very successful men in their own right, and they're gonna tell you a little bit about themselves and maybe give you some of the clues to success that they have in life. That's why we invited them on. So we have Paul Schon, Kit Dale, and Jonathan Kowalsky. I'm gonna start off with Jonathan since he's the man of the hour that kind of got everybody together for us, and we appreciate you guys and we want you to give these kids some great advice about life. So Jonathan, let's start it off with tell us what you do and where you're from.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. So I am from Long Island, New York. I've lived in Los Angeles for 18 years now. What I do is a plethora of things. First and foremost, I'm an actor. That's why I moved to Los Angeles 18 years ago, just like half the rest of the city. But I got into the arts in college, and I decided, I love being a class clown. I love putting on a show. So I'm like, all right, let me see if I can make a living off of it. And I moved to LA. It's a very saturated business, meaning a lot of people here. And I learned very quickly that it was difficult to make a living off of doing it, but I kept doing it for a very long time. And I want to say after 5 years with no guarantee, I started to make some money off of doing it. And Then I was very lucky to like work on a TV show, and I was able to make a pretty good living. All the while, I fell in love with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I, split my time doing acting jobs and then doing Jiu-Jitsu, and also teaching people Jiu-Jitsu, teaching people health and fitness, like because I was an athlete my whole life. And when acting wasn't going well, I would sustain myself teaching people Jiu-Jitsu or working out or personal training. And when it wasn't, I would be acting and make a really good amount of money doing that. And then at a certain point, I started to invest my money because I wanted to make sure I was protected, that I always had money coming in. So I started getting involved in real estate. I bought a couple properties in Texas, and I invested with one of my best friends who's on here, Paul Schon, and have some investments in some local apartment complexes. And that helps sustain myself and my family. What I will say is that I don't think my success comes from a dollar. I don't think my success comes from any like shows I've been on. My success comes from, I have a wife with 2 very beautiful kids and some amazing friends. And the way we choose to live our life is where I find my success. Like, I don't have a mansion. This is my man cave, as you can see. It's nothing awesome. I don't have a yacht. I don't have a Mercedes, but I would consider myself a very successful person because of my family, because of my kids, because of my friends, and the way that we live our life. So that's me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to move on to Kit. He has a great story he's going to share with you guys. Once again, where you're from and what you do, Mr. Kit.
Well, I'm from Australia originally, but I'm living in Los Angeles now.
How you do, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm quite similar to Johnny and Paul in many aspects, because I'm not really just doing one thing with my life. There's multiple things I've done. I go through kind of like waves of what I'm really interested in. But I also, I'm in martial arts. It's probably what I'm mostly known for is my competitive career in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and my coaching. So I got into that about, I think it was in 2008, after I went through so many different jobs, and I really hated the jobs that I was doing. I hated working. I really felt like there was no passion in it for me. It just really wasn't for me. And enough to meet a really cool mentor that kind of convinced me that I could do whatever I wanted to a certain extent, as long as I was willing to believe in myself and put in the work. So the first thing I decided to do, I was like, well, what do I want to do? Well, I like martial arts, so how about I try and become one of the best, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters in the world? So that was like my first big goal, and I was very lucky to be able to live that life. I competed professionally and got to travel a lot of the world. I mean, 2 world pro championships. I won a Brazilian championships, I think, in about 13 different countries. And I had a very short yet successful career in competitive jiu-jitsu. And then that kind of pushed me more into wanting to get into the acting, like John. So I kind of made a shift about, I think it was 2014, 2015. I hurt my knee. I had to have a knee reconstruction. And I decided, okay, what else can I do? Okay, I want to get into acting. So I started pursuing that. And then I was very lucky to pick opportunities in that. And at the moment, I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm balancing like 10 different things that I like doing. And I kind of I'll do one for a couple months. Right now, I've been doing competitive gaming online. Hence this chair. It was kind of my goal was like to spend a year and become one of the best gamers in the world. And I've been on there for about 3 months, and I feel like I'm about 3/4 of the way there. I'm pretty good with that.
What are the games you play?
I'm playing mainly Apex Legends, which is a battle royale games, like 60 people landing in a map. You got to get armor, weapons, and then survive as long as you can. It's fun, but it's really frustrating. But it's keeping me occupied at the moment. But I kind of just do a lot of different things. I've been able to. I think my success mainly lies in my ability to be able to sustain a lifestyle where I don't have to really work. I've got some very successful online programs for teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which bring me a decent income that allows me to basically spend the days learning or playing with things that I want to do. And I feel like it's just a really good lifestyle for me. So I've been able to get a lot of financial freedom, which allows me the freedom to learn new things, to practice new things, which a lot of other people I know don't have that time. So I'm very, very grateful for that. So I feel like that's probably my biggest success, is just developing a lifestyle that I actually enjoy.
Cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our third wise man, Mr. Paul Schon. Where you're from and what you do.
Hey guys, so thanks for having me. I'm Paul Schon, and I was actually born in Mexico City. So born in Mexico City, and then when I was 14, my family, we immigrated to San Diego. That's why I went to high school, college up in Northern California, and then now LA. I've been in LA for 10, 11 years now. So what I do is right after college, I started a career in real estate. So I got my realtor's license and started brokering. With brokering means selling. I started selling apartment buildings here in Los Angeles. And I was fortunate enough, I met my business partner, and while I was brokering, I was flipping homes on the side. And we started really from the grounds up. We started with a house in Inglewood, actually. It started in Inglewood. We bought it, we fixed it, we sold it. Then we bought another one in Compton. And then we kind of I stopped brokering, and then I started just focusing my career to build just wealth in real estate. So we flipped a lot of homes. And now in 2012, the business transitioned to, we build boutique apartment buildings through Los Angeles. So we develop boutique apartment buildings through Los Angeles. And I personally love real estate as a career, because there's infinite amount of options that you can do, from flipping to construction to development to financing. So there's so many options that someone can do in real estate, and really there's no ceiling. You can just keep growing and building a bigger portfolio for yourself. So that's what I do as a business. So my business partner and I started the business in 2009. We're still building apartment buildings. And as a side, and as a very serious hobby, I train with those two ugly looking meatheads on the screen, and Johnny.
You talking about Lee and so
I've had the pleasure to train with Officer Lee, and it was awesome. And I want to go back and train with him and the kids, and I had a great time, and it's right down the street from where I live. So I'll be back. But what I got to say about martial arts is one of the many things that really developed me and of who I am now is, for me, I started with wrestling. So I started wrestling in high school, and man, the things you learn by doing a combative sport with another individual that wants to tackle you and pin you against the ground, you learn so many life lessons doing that. Just to me, one of the most important things in life is just grit and discipline and work ethic. And you really learn it when you're in one-on-one combat with your buddy who's trying to pin you down, and you develop that willpower, which then translates to anything else that you want to do in life, in your career, which, hey, after you got Kid Dale or Johnny K sweating on top of you, pinning you down, putting in 10, 12-hour, 14-hour work days is no big deal. It's like, oh, I already had Kid's smelly armpits on my face. All right, I can do anything I want now. So that's one of the things that I love. And I think if you stick to something and you succeed at something, it really translates to anything else that you do in life. So I'm a true believer of success follows success. So but in order to be successful in one thing, you got to stick to it, and you got to focus on it and work your butt off on it. And then you'll be successful with that. And then whatever you do the next thing, and you focus and you work your butt off it, it'll lead to another successful venture for whatever you focus on. So that's me.
Really good. Really inspirational. Really inspirational. I have a question before our kids start off. I know our kids got a lot of questions for you guys, but jiu-jitsu, you guys talk about martial arts and jiu-jitsu. For a novice like myself and maybe some of the other kids, can you explain what jiu-jitsu means? To me, jiu-jitsu means men put on pajamas and wrestle with each other. Am I mistaken in saying that, or can you explain what jiu-jitsu means?
Of course, the basketball player would say that. Kid, you're probably the most articulate at explaining jiu-jitsu since you taught it all your life. You want to take first crack at it?
Please,
I mean, I agree.
English for him, so he can grasp this concept for once and all.
I agreed. I thought jiu-jitsu was the exact same thing when I first watched it. I mean, obviously jiu-jitsu is about forcing your opponent to tap, whether through strangulation or joint manipulation. I think the real benefits of jiu-jitsu is the same as what Paul said. But actually, I can't even remember what the question was, to be honest. The direct question was what jiu-jitsu really was. Yeah, it's a game of two people trying to force each other to quit via a choke or via joint manipulation. So you're basically trying to force your opponent into a position where they cannot no longer continue without damaging their own body or going to sleep. I agree with everything Paul said, with except for me being smelly. About
No, he's smelly.
Oh, Johnny. I think that the best thing about jiu-jitsu is it really forces you to really face certain things inside yourself. It could be certain anxieties, fears, or whatever. But there's been a lot of times through competing that I've really had to look inside myself and really deal with things that I wouldn't usually have to deal with or want to deal with. It's kind of like everyone's got a comfort zone. I feel like jiu-jitsu really extends that comfort zone to get bigger and bigger, but it also helps you understand yourself a lot more. There's many times where I remember one particular, before I move on, is where I was in Abu Dhabi. I was competing in the quarterfinals, and the Sheikh of Abu Dhabi were there. The crowd was packed, and I saw my big ass head on the screen, and I started getting real anxious, and I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I was so nervous. And I remember I was just thinking, I'm going to leave. And I turned around to just walk off. And then I saw someone in the crowd, a friend of mine, I forget his name, Jago Stefanuti, and he was like, "Go, kid, go." And then I just went back and just walked on the mat, even though I felt like I couldn't breathe. And as soon as I stepped on that mat, it all just went away. And I kind of felt like there was no problems in my life. I was just in that moment, which is what most people that meditate try and do. And I feel like the one good thing about jiu-jitsu is it really forces you to be in that moment and to really calm your mind and deal with things that are right in front of you. So that's kind of what I like, the way I see jiu-jitsu.
That's a pretty good explanation. I kind of feel like I have a better understanding, and I like your guys' message about the hard work and dedication to the sport. And hopefully, again, that's going to be something that our kids are going to take away from this meeting. Derek is one of our wrestlers, jiu-jitsu guys, karate guys. I think Derek might have a question for you. Go ahead, Derek.
You gotta unmute, Derek.
I guess this has to be for all you guys. Out of all your, how can I say it, tournaments, what has been like the most challenging part of training?
I'd say for me, it's injuries. I'm 39 years old, and I've been training. Like Paul, I started wrestling when I was in middle school, actually, and I wrestled all the way through college. And when I was 21 years old, it was my senior year, and I tore my ACL. And that, believe it or not, it didn't, I didn't realize the levity of the situation at the time, but I had to get a major surgery, and I bounced right back. But what happens is your body compensates, and your body does recover, but it also, what happened was I put more pressure on my other knee, and then for years and years and years I would train, and then I tore my other ACL. And at that point, it got really, I think I was like 24. So now I'm 39 years old. I've had 5 knee surgeries and 2 shoulder surgeries. Each time it was like getting knocked down really hard. And the good thing is that I've taken from it is I always got back up. That's the main thing. I never was like, I'm quitting. I never was like, why is this happening to me? I never was like, I'm weak. I always was like, I'm going to get back stronger than what I was before. And, knock on wood, I haven't had an injury for a very long time, like a significant injury, I should say. But that has been one of the biggest obstacles through my lifetime of training.
How about you, Paul, to answer the same question? What's your biggest obstacle or hurdle in the sport?
I think my senior year of high school, I really wanted to wrestle in college and get recruited in college. And one of the first tournaments, I don't even know because I didn't even go to the hospital. I really messed up my ankle in the semifinals. And I fought the finals with a hurt ankle. And then I couldn't really train for the next 2 months. And as a wrestler, another thing that comes to you is you have to be cutting a lot of weight. And without training, it's hard to cut weight. But yeah, you just power through, get it done, and ended up having a very successful second half of the season, and was able to get recruited and wrestle in college. And but it was cutting weight, not being able to train, going through injuries, as Johnny said, and still powering through it.
Did you win that match with the busted ankle?
Yeah, so I won that match in the semifinals, and I actually beat the guy who beat my last match my junior year. I beat him in the finals, and why I fought that match was in order to get a higher seed as we go through the year, because seeding is important throughout when in the wrestling tournaments. So I knew I had adrenaline going. I knew I could keep going through the pain and just beat the guy, because I knew the next day my ankle was going to be hurting.
Right.
Can you tell the kids what college you wrestled at?
Yeah, I wrestled at UC Davis, which is up in Northern California. And we were a decent Division I team, but we actually did okay. And we had some really good, some of my college teammates that ended up fighting professional martial arts and making a good living out of it.
Wow. Wow. So we have a couple of females in our program that do the mixed martial arts. Mercy is one of them. Mercy, can you think of something to ask these guys? Because I can ask for you.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Paul, actually, because he mentioned that when he was fighting, like he felt like his problems went away, right? But is it ever mentally challenging for you? Like, even though you're passionate about like martial arts and stuff, do you ever think like, does it mentally like challenge you apart from without being in martial arts, or does it like it help you? Because I know that once you're in martial arts, obviously always tells me that you're the one in control, and then it's has to do a lot with like your mentality. But do you think that mentality helped you like outside of martial arts with your life and stuff?
Good question. Good question.
Yeah, great question. I think it was who answered that, who said that story, but I'll try to answer it. Yeah, so being present at the moment is something that everyone always wants to be. And when you're training, when you're at the gym or at a tournament, there's no more present feeling than that, because you're combating someone. So I love it, and I think it helps me so much with everything else I do in life, because it just de-stresses me. I can go back to work and be focused and concentrate, because after an hour or two of training, I feel great. And but I'll let Kate answer, because I think he said that story about Dubai.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like what Paul said, I think a lot of time in life you can be sort of like not right in the present. I mean, you're either sitting there worried about things that are coming. It could be as a kid's, you know, you might have a test coming up tomorrow, or you might have to get a certain grade for this. And it brings you a certain amount of stress or anxiety when you're sitting there thinking about things like that. And sometimes you think about things that you did in the past that you regret. Maybe you didn't work hard enough in something. Maybe you didn't do, you know, there could be that test that's coming up. Maybe you didn't work hard enough on it. You haven't studied, so you're stressed about that. And anytime you're in those states, it's not a really good place to be, because you're not in the moment, and it'll bring you a lot of stress. And stress is really unhealthy for the body, and anxiety is really unhealthy for the body, and it's a very uncomfortable mindset to be in. So I try to, as much as I can, I try not to be in any of those states. I try and be in the middle, which is just what's in front of you. But sometimes it's very hard, where in martial arts, I think it's really good for people that struggle to meditate, or if you don't have, I mean, you can get it from, if you're painting, if you're drawing, if you're doing something artistic, it's very easy to get. And it's also known as the flow state, where basically time seems to react a little differently to the way it normally does. I mean, let's say you're in class and you're really bored and you want to go home. It can seem like the seconds are taking, you know, minutes or hours. But when you're doing something that you really love and you're in that moment and nothing else matters, time just goes so quickly. The whole day will be gone and it feels like you haven't even done it. I know I used to get this from painting as well, when I would paint little models and toy models, unfortunately. And what would happen is a whole day would go past and I haven't eaten, I haven't had anything to drink. Yeah, I'm not even hungry or thirsty. I'll just be like, oh, I've got to eat. You know, so much time's gone past. And it's such a nice place to be in. So I feel like martial arts is good because it forces you to be in that position. But I think the real the real win from being in martial arts, and especially when you do well in martial arts, is translating that into other areas of life, translating that new confidence that you have in yourself to other areas of life. When you can go in there and you can compete, and like what Paul and Johnny say, you put all that work in, you train for weeks, you cut all that weight, your diet's on point, then you go out and you do as good as you can in that competition. That brings you so much more confidence to any other area in life, because you know, well, I know if I work hard and I do everything I can possible and I put my best effort in, I know good things happen. So then I take that and I start applying it to acting. Let's say I want to be an actor. So I'm going to go to acting class. I'm going to read scripts. I'm going to watch good movies. I'm going to put all this work in. I'm going to put as much effort as I can in that. And I know that in the end, even though it's really hard to see, in the end, it's still going to push me to my goals. Because as Johnny knows more than anyone, because he's got so much more experience in acting, there's so much rejection that comes in acting with auditioning. And sometimes you nail an audition or you feel like you're the perfect guy for the role and you just don't get it. And it might happen 20, 30, 40 times in a row. But you know from the martial arts, if I keep working hard and I keep doing this, eventually it's going to happen. And then things slowly start happening. So I feel like the real benefit to martial arts is the confidence that it brings that can be translated into every area of life.
Great piece of advice. Very good piece of advice. Did that help a little bit, Mercy?
Yeah, it helps me figure out like what I'm going through. So, yeah.
Amen.
Oh my God, stop.
Do those words sound familiar? I'm just asking.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I never said maybe, but it's different. You know, I'm hearing it from multiple people.
I know. That's why we brought these three wise men on for you.
John, can I ask a question? John,
Absolutely.
You said that you had two kids, a boy and a girl. Do you have a daughter?
I have a boy and a girl. Yep. 3-year-old
Awesome.
and a 2-year-old.
So to stay on the same topic, we have the two girls, Yuritsa and Mercy, are in our martial arts program. What advice could you give girls in the program, these two and the other ones in our program, as far as still being attracted to martial arts and still being girly at the same time?
Absolutely great question. Great question.
Yuritsa didn't like that question. She frowned.
Well, I can tell you, ironically, my daughter takes more after me and my son takes more after my wife. So even though they're too young to tell, I'm pretty confident that my daughter is going to be the jiu-jitsu champion and my son is probably going to be like a hairstylist or something, because my wife is a hairstylist. what I is physicality is, you know, for years upon years in sports, physicality has always been kind of perpetuated that it's more for boys and less for girls. But end of the day is this is a sport about your brain. And it's good that the world is changing and that females and males are able to do everything. Everything. It is there is an ability for both males and females to do everything one and the other can do. But what I will say is in our sport, at first glance, it is a physical sport. But when you really get into it, when you really fall in love with the sport and you really start to understand the sport, it's not a physical sport, it's a mental sport. And I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying, the original question that you asked, Mercy, about mentality. It really takes a lot of time to get your mentality right. Meaning, if you do fail at something, and instead of just walking away and feeling worse about it, you dissect it in your head and say, okay, what happened there? You start to dissect it and you go back and you might fail again, and then you dissect it and you go back until your brain actually starts to learn which path to go until you get the right path. And I really think that transcends gender. It transcends being a male or a female or masculinity and femininity. It's really about getting to that next level of, because you could apply it to everything, whether it's martial arts, whether it's boxing, whether it's striking, you apply that same thing in life. Like if you fail at something, or if you get hurt at something, or if you get rejected at something, what our sport will do is it weeds out like, okay, I failed, and then they quit and they never go back. But male or female, if you dissect it, you learn from it, and then you try and try again, you'll find the right path. That's where I think the people, and I say people because it doesn't matter if you're a male or female, will excel. And in doing that, you have the tools to really overcome anything, like life stuff that you have no control over, financial stuff, you know, illnesses. There's so many things that get thrown your way that doing our sport is overcoming adversity. And when you have adversity in life, you're able to overcome it. And it's all while keeping that strong mind, and that instead of like just failing and going crazy or crying, screaming, you sit there and you analyze it, and then you figure out a different path. And I really, truly believe that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is one of those great mental sports that it doesn't matter male or female. I used to teach female self-defense classes, and 80% of it was just using your head and not using your physicality. Because realistically, this is what makes human beings top of the food chain, our brain. Because, you know, bears and gorillas and lions, they're way bigger and stronger than us. The reason that human beings are, we are the top of the food chain on the planet is because of our brains. So really, you could apply that to anything for whatever sport, whatever thing, male, female, as long as you're using your head and you know how to use the applications of a good mentality, you know, fail and then try a new path, fail, try a new path, fail, try a new path, you're always going to succeed.
So powerful. That's really powerful, John. Really powerful.
Yeah.
We try to teach our kids here in the program, there's no such thing as failure. It's just an experience. And you learn from every,
it's a lesson. That's it.
It's a lesson. You learn from every experience or lesson that you go through. So failure is just taking that next step to get to where you want to get to. Go ahead,
Absolutely.
Lee.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is why I brought you guys on. You're just backing up everything we tell them. And like they said, Miss Mercy, hearing it from others, you know, helps you out because you're getting that same message and you're seeing it applies to everyone, not just you, but everyone. So Miguel and Yaditza, I know you guys have something to ask. These two both compete on the NABJF circuit, so lots of questions there. Go for it.
Okay, the question I'm gonna ask is for three of you. So the question is, what were your thoughts that you were going to leave another state or country for a big tournament?
Miguel, I missed the question. Ask it again. I don't think we heard it.
The question is, what were your thoughts when you left when you were about to leave the state or a country for a big tournament?
Kit, you want to
You
start
should
off?
probably answer that first since you traveled the most.
Yeah. Okay.
Competing.
So I was living in Australia and I was competing all over the world. I usually compete it was either Los Angeles, Brazil, or Abu Dhabi or Japan. So I
Where's
think
Abu Dhabi?
Abu Dhabi, whereabouts is Abu Dhabi?
Yeah,
It's next
the
to
Middle
Dubai.
East, right?
Middle
Yeah,
East.
it's in the Middle East. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Geez, I had to think about that as well. I'm like, where is it? So the first couple tournaments, I was super nervous because I'd never left the country. I had no idea what it's like outside of Australia. So my first tournament was in Abu Dhabi, Middle East. And I was really nervous. I was very anxious leading up to that. I think I was stressed for like 4 or 5 weeks. I wasn't even sure if I was even going to be allowed to like get in the country for some reason. I was thought something was going to happen, but eventually it all happened and it was fine. And it was so good because especially in Abu Dhabi, because when you're competing in the Abu Dhabi World Pro Championship, all the best fighters in the world that did all the qualifying competitions are there together, and you spend about 2 weeks together. So you get to meet these people, and there's so much, especially watching these growing up jiu-jitsu, so to speak, because I would watch the World Championship, see guys, see them, it was a lot of fun. And so I really enjoyed the traveling. For nervous early on, and then of energy. Sometimes the flights are, up to 21 hours of flights. You don't get much sleep. You don't get to eat very good food. You might have to cut weight. So depending on which tournament, I would try and be very smartly prepared for the tournaments and try and get as much sleep as I could, and to try and do the best. But it is very much a big disadvantage when you have to travel. Interstate's not so bad, but when you're traveling different countries, you have to understand you're going to have jet lag. I think it takes roughly, I think it's 1 day per hour of time travel during, like, through a plane to recover. So let's say it's a 15-hour flight to go from Australia to Los Angeles to compete. It's going to take about 15 days until all the jet lag's gone and I feel normal, because jet lag, it attacks your sleep. If you don't get good sleep, your immune system gets compromised, plus your energy and everything gets worse and worse. So the worst thing you can do is travel and compete and get sick because you didn't get enough sleep. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you're flying coach in the back of the plane and you're next to some really big guy, so you're both stuck like trying to sleep like this. And then if you're lucky enough to get good sponsors or you make enough money to fly first class, then you're lying down, and it's a big difference. So that also makes a big big difference when it comes to competing, is how I'm going to fly there or where I'm going to stay when I get there.
Paul, can you expound on that a little bit more, Paul? And just to preface this a little bit, Yuritsa and Miguel, I think they're going to Utah. Am I mistaken, Officer Lee?
He's correct.
Yeah, they're going to Utah. So the reason why Miguel is asking this question is he's probably never been to Utah, probably never been out of California, and to leave this state and go somewhere, totally foreign to him, has got to be intimidating, a little scary. So that's why he's asking this question, I would assume.
That's awesome. You're going to Utah, Miguel. What sport?
It's judo.
Judo?
Judo. Uh-huh.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'll share a little bit my experience. First of all, that's super cool. I think one of the times that popped in my head is when I went to go compete at nationals, and I was representing California, to like representing it as a state for wrestling. And I went to Ohio to compete, and it was so cool. Like, okay, you have your Team California team sweatshirt and ready to go and go compete against other guys. But at the end of the day, we're all humans. We all compete. We all make mistakes. We all win. We all lose. Everyone's as nervous as everyone. So just really appreciate the experience that you're going out there and you're representing Los Angeles to go compete out there. So that's really cool that you get to do that. And look, everyone's as nervous as you are. So just know that.
Good.
I wrestled club in college, and what I'll say is I went to college in Florida from New York, so I was already used to traveling and seeing how different states work, and I got excited from it personally. I think I'm a very curious person still to this day. Like, even if it's a country that doesn't seem that great to visit, I want to visit it just to see what it's like. I think it's a great education. So the only obstacle I would have was to make sure that I was focused on the objective of, oh, we have a dual meet or we have a match, and not just like, oh, let me see what this town looks like. Let me walk around, see what the people look like. So it's a mix of really know that you're lucky. You get to see what Utah looks like, and it is a beautiful state. On top of do what you love to do. And I think as long as you keep in mind, like what Paul said, everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's a human being, and everybody has butterflies before they compete. Everybody's like, oh, well, I've never seen these kids before. I don't know who I'm going against, but are they tougher in California? Are they tougher in Utah? Everybody has those thoughts. So what I would say is just the term I get to. It's not I have to go to Utah to compete. It's I get to go to Utah to compete. Now you get to see somewhere new, and who knows where else it'll take you. Like Kit.
Good point. You get the chance to. It's like you're an all-star in essence. You're getting to travel while other people are staying home and don't get that same opportunity. So
Absolutely.
You got to look at it. You got to look at it that way. That's great observation. Great point right there.
Awesome. Tell the kids some of the things you guys do to prepare for tournaments, like your cross training, your running, your weightlifting, things like that. I guess we should start with Kit, because amongst us, he is the most traveled.
So this is very subjective to whatever tournament I'm going to compete in. I would usually try and figure out what tournament is it. Is it a super fight, or is it an elimination tournament? How many people are in the division? Who's in my division? And luckily, the higher you go, the more common it is to understand and know who you're going to be competing against. So you know, I'm going against this competitor. I know he likes to do this. So I can kind of prepare individually for the athlete I'm going against. But the most important thing really with preparation is making sure your body's good. You know, you want to try and train as hard as you can to get your fitness up without compromising your body and injuring yourself, as Johnny was talking about earlier. And I'm in the same boat. Paul said the same thing. Injuries can really slow you down. So you don't want to overtrain, because if you overtrain, you can hurt yourself and you can end up being worse off. But I also try not to think about once I'm training and once I've figured out who I'm going to be competing against, and sometimes you don't even know, I try not to think about the matches any more than I have to, because what happens is, one, your brain doesn't know the difference between what you're imagining and what you're really going through. And the more you sit there thinking about matches happening yet, but matches that could happen in the future and possibilities in those matches, you start getting nervous because your body thinks that you're actually competing or fighting. So it starts releasing adrenaline. Your body will go through a process to make you feel, and it's just that nervous, the butterflies you get, your heart rate elevates a little bit, you can get sweaty palms. And the more you do this, the more your body is forcing you to release energy that you don't want to be releasing yet. You want to save all the energy for the matches that are coming. So I try not to think about my matches anymore. I try and stay in the present moment as much as I can. I trust that I did the preparation. I did everything I could to prepare for this tournament. And when it comes, I'm going to do as much as I can. Well, I'm going to make the decisions based on my own experience as well as I can and give it the most effort. If I do that, regardless of whether I win or I lose, I still win because I did my best and I prepared as much as I can for that. So I try not to, and this is more later on in life, I try not to get attached to outcomes or have any expectations. I'm going to prepare for this and I'm going to do as much as I can. Whatever decisions I make in that match, whether I win or lose, it was still the right decision because I thought that was the right thing to do. So I don't think so much about winning or losing anymore because it makes me nervous and it brings me stress that I don't need. And I try and savor the competition, and I do a lot better when I do that.
Nice, very nice. Well said. Paul, could you elaborate a little bit more on that as far as the physical preparation going into a tournament or a fight? For our kids, lifting weights probably isn't an answer right now. Do they have something that you probably did when you were getting ready at that age where weights weren't involved? Something else that you did to get your body ready?
Yeah, absolutely. So getting your cardiovascular system, your cardio, as we call it, is super important for our sports. So you really can do almost anything to get you can run a mile as fast as you can to get your heart rate up, and that's exhausting, and that'll get your cardio up, and then or do some sprints. So I used to do a lot of sprints. I would sprint 30 seconds, jog a minute, sprint 30 seconds, jog a minute. So getting your cardio up is super important for our sport, because it's so much of it is just will and who wants it more. Another thing I would say is when you train this hard, injuries are going to happen. We're going to go to that tournament. Your wrist might hurt, your knee might hurt, your elbow might hurt. It's part of the sport, and you're not alone, and everyone gets these injuries. And just my coach in college used to say, if you go to the tournament and you're injury free, you didn't train hard enough. So just it's part of it. Know when to take it off and when to keep going. That's very important. But if you have an injury, maybe your opponent does too, and just be smart about it. And then another thing, aside from the physical, is the mental game is so important before a competition. So I like what Kit said. Try not to get nervous too early, because it will affect your mindset for the tournament. So what I would do the day of the tournament, before I did my first match, is I would do 3 exercises of visualization: 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes. The first 5 minutes, I would just remind myself why I'm doing it. Like I'm training with my friends. I'm having a good time. My brother's also an incredible Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. I started training with him. So you think of the past, like, why are you doing this? Why are you competing right now? And what got you into it? And like all those happy memories on why you got into Jiu-Jitsu or to Judo or to whatever sport you're doing. So I visualize that for 5 minutes. Then I visualize for 5 minutes, like the best times I've ever competed. So times that I've won. And I take my mind to those times where I've won, where I've been on the podium, where I did an excellent move to my training partner. And so I get my mindset there. And then the third 5 minutes, I just visualize the match and me winning the future match I'm going to compete. So I visualize my opponent. I visualize how it's going to start. We're going to shake hands. We're going to go. I'm going to throw him. I'm going to get on top of him. I'm going to submit him, whatever it is. I visualize, and then I visualize myself at the end, like with my hand raised. So I do those 3 things every time before a tournament. And I think that puts me in the right mindset to go out there and compete.
Hey, kids, one thing before we get on to John. So like Kit said, it's a small world and a lot of traveling. And Paul he just mentioned his brother. So I kind of met Paul for his brother, because his brother and I both compete on a world circuit team. And his brother is a very good athlete, just like him. So him mentioning how he trains with his brother, you got 2 brothers, really dope jiu-jitsu guys, really dope wrestlers. So a lot of you guys are siblings, okay? So it's important to train with siblings and help each other out, because you can be in 2 different parts of the world, but you know, that connection, that bond that you guys form, it helps out in everything you do in life, because there's an importance to family, which most of you guys know. And I mean, as having siblings, you're always going to fight and stuff. But for those of you who are both in martial arts, or 3 or 4 you guys, it helps so much having that common bond. And like I said, his brother is, I've seen him in a couple of different countries, actually. I only see Paul here, but every time I see his brother, it's in another country, okay? So you guys can travel with this. I see his brother normally once a year, and it's always in a different country. So we'll let John get back to it, though. Sorry.
But before we go to John, though, I just want to retouch on what Paul said. Visualization, guys. Visualization is really important. want to become successful in life, you have to visualize something and visualize yourself being successful at it. Just by a show of hands, how many of you guys have ever done visualization before? Show of hands. Not you, kid. Any of our kids? Miguel, yeah? Tell me about it, Miguel. Tell us about it.
Whenever I get nervous at a tournament, I usually like think about like what I learn at training or what I've been practicing.
Great.
Sometimes.
That's awesome. Good for you. Keep it up. It's going to take you a long way in life. You'll become successful by doing that visualization. John, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off or jump on your toes, but
No problem.
Can you tell how many push-ups and sit-ups you do on a regular basis and when you started maybe?
That's a good question. During the quarantine, when everything was shut down, I was trying to do. So let me first go back to the original question about preparation for a big tournament, because it kind of bleeds into that. I'm very much about breaking barriers, meaning do better the next day than you did the day before. And a lot of that is with mental strength. And I think there is a wrestler kind of mentality of like, push yourself, which is what Paul was saying, how you kind of could get injured doing that. But 9 years ago, I had my one and only MMA fight. It was one of those things where I just wanted to challenge myself. I was used to competing in wrestling and then jiu-jitsu. And then, we had a couple pro fighters coming and I would do pretty well against them. I'm all right, let me try this out. And in my head, like, even though I had no aspirations of being a fighter, I wasn't losing. Like, I'm doing this, I'm taking it seriously. So I knew once I made that, I set that goal and I set that precedent that I'm going to win this fight. Now I had to back it up. So I used everything I had from my wrestling background, from, every movie we've all watched, those motivational movies. And I'm like, I'm going to push it even harder. So if I went out on a run, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go out on a run and like, you know what? I'm going to sprint this hill. And then when I sprint this hill, I'm going to go to that tree. And then as my body's shutting down, as I'm getting to the tree, I'll trick my brain and go, you know what? I'm going past the drum. I'm going 20 yards past the tree. And I'd go another 20 yards to the point where I'm like crying, like, oh, and like I'm almost throwing up. Like, you're going past that point of I can't go anymore. And you're like, no, there's no not doing it. You have to do it. Sometimes I would set a thing on the treadmill. If you're not running outside, I would go, all right, if I'm going to run on the treadmill and do 3 miles, every half mile, I have to go up a decimal point. Meaning if I'm running at 6, every half mile, I'm going 6.5, 6.6, 6.7, 6.8. And there's no turning back. It's a mental game that it's like when you're only 2.5 miles in and you're at a full sprint and you're like, I can't do another half mile of this. Guess what? Every decimal point, you still have to hit that up button. So it's a little bit of a mental trick to know once you start hitting those goals or saying you're going to do something and doing it, it becomes practice. It's like, okay, I said I'm going to do a fight and I'm going to win a fight. There's no not winning the fight. So I guess there's like Paul said, there was this little bit of maybe overtraining because there was a healthy amount of fear, both fear of ego, which is a little bit healthy. Again, your ego is only so much. You don't want to lose in front of your friends. You don't want to lose in front of your family. My girlfriend came at the time and, I had friends buy tickets. I'm like, and then there's the lose of like, oh, I might bust my face up. I might, get stitches everywhere, get disfigured. So then there's that fear. As long as I kept it at a healthy amount, the mental game I would play with myself still drove me to push past those barriers of my body. And I just remember, like, I was training as if this was, UFC champion fight. I would do jiu-jitsu in the morning and then I would box in the afternoon and then I would do strength and conditioning at night. I woke up in the morning, I'd be like, okay, I have a fight in 3 weeks. And I would eat accordingly and I would sleep accordingly. And anytime it got a little overwhelming, like Kit said, where it gets too stressful or too much anxiety, Paul did visualization, which is a great tactic, which I wish I did more of. I did a little bit more breathing, kind of just like long, slow, deep breaths, which if you guys ever have butterflies, even as an actor or going into a competition, when you just breathe and you let your body take in that oxygen and you hold it and you slowly breathe it out, it just calms and slows everything down. It calms your brain down, calms your heart rate down, it calms your stomach down. And it just was always a good tool of getting rid of butterflies, getting rid of anxiety, just breath work. I've never trained in it like Hicks and Gracie, because there are people have techniques of breathing, but I kind of just always innately knew that when things got too stressful or too anxious, or I had too many racing thoughts of fear or ego, I would breathe and it would calm down. And then when I wasn't doing that, I would use it to push me to break those barriers, like set those goals. So yeah, back to what was the question you asked?
How many push-ups can you do, bro?
Oh. So during this, there you go.
He eluded that question. You saw that, huh?
I totally forgot. Thank you. During this quarantine, I got a little lazy. I'm not gonna lie. In the first, like the first part, like late March, we ate crappy food and we watched a ton of Netflix. And me and my wife just chilled out. Because when our kids go to bed, they don't take naps. And we're just so beat.
Stop dodging the question, bro.
So after like a month, and I'm starting to notice I'm getting kind of pudgy. I'm like, damn, this is no excuse. So I want to say in like mid to late April, I'm like every day I'm doing push-ups. So again, breaking through to the next level, I would start and do like 3 sets of 20. I'm like, all right, that's too easy. Now I'm like, let me do 50 straight. I do 50 straight. The next day I do 50 straight push-ups. And this is in collaboration with abs. I have a pull-up bar outside of some band work. But push-ups was like the big barrier, the goal setter. So then the goal was, you know what? I got to get to 80 straight. 80 straight push-ups. That's nonstop. I can't break the plank. I can't lift up. I can't get my butt in the air. So 80 straight push-ups. And I did it every day until I was able to get to 80 straight. And now that the gyms are open, I'm still doing 80 straight like 2-3 times a week. But now that the gyms are open up, I'm working on other body parts. But there's your answer. I couldn't initially do 80 straight through push-ups. And now I want to say it took like 2 to 3 weeks. And my kids would do it next to me like all like goofy, like kid push-ups. But I would do 80 straight push-ups after like 2-3 weeks.
I got a question for the kids.
Yeah.
How often do you guys work out? Like, is it 5 times a week, 3 times a week? How often are you guys doing some sort of workout?
Good question. Good question. Derek?
The truth comes out, Paul. See all these crickets I hear?
I work out like 6 or 5 times a week.
Oh, God. Hold on. Wait, let me go get my fishing boots, y'all. I think it's getting deep.
Alvin?
How many times?
About 4 times a week.
4 times a week. Nice. You really?
3 or 4 depends.
Wow. Yuritsa?
What was it? 5 to 6 times a week.
Awesome.
Very nice. What type of workout are you doing, Yuritsa?
In the morning we run, and then in the afternoon we usually do like weights, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, leg lifts, and other more stuff. And sometimes and forms sometimes. I'm saying form.
Wow. Wow. How old are you again, Yuritsa?
10, sir.
Wow.
And you're already doing weights. Watch out, kid.
Yeah.
She coming for you, kid.
So one last question, because we're about that hour. So a lot of times the kids ask about, the belts, and I always tell them, hey, typical jiu-jitsu thing, don't worry about the belts, But please, all 3 of you guys, tell them how long it took you to become a black belt and the most memorable story you can tell in your journey of that.
Johnny, you want to go first?
Sure. I started training jiu-jitsu around 2006, and I got my black belt late 2015. So around 10 years it took me. Now keep in mind there were some periods of recovery of like 9 months. I think 2 separate periods of around 9 months where I couldn't train. So it took almost 10 years, but really, if you take out the surgeries, 8.5. And a story. When I came back from my first knee surgery. Now, keep in mind, I was a wrestler. So when I started jiu-jitsu, I was a little bit excelled because wrestling is like the precursor to jiu-jitsu. And I excelled very, very quickly. So I was doing so well and up some really good guys that when I got injured, time had passed and I came back and I was still a white belt. It was almost as if I had to start from scratch because I was only training like a year and a half, but with a wrestling background. So about another year goes by and I was a 4-stripe white belt, and everybody was kind of always upset when they got passed over and they never got their belts. I never cared. It really was not an issue to me because even as a 2-stripe white belt, there was a lot of blue belts that I was beating. But it came to a point where people were getting mad at my coach, like, how is he a white belt? And I didn't care. I actually was cool keeping my white belt, beating up on other guys. But eventually he had this like speech, and it was really funny. He did it in front of the whole class. He's like, this one, I kind of messed up because, again, with the injury and coming back and just so much time had lapsed that I was such a high-level white belt that everybody was so happy when I finally got my blue belt. So it was kind of like just a funny story that I was a very high-level white belt. But for me, it didn't matter either way. I knew that even getting my blue belt, I still was going to go just as hard and get to the next level. So that's my story.
I've never heard anybody say I was a high-level white belt before.
High-level white belt, yeah.
He doesn't understand jiu-jitsu. Please forgive him.
Right, so good.
That's awesome.
Paul?
Yeah, I think Tabron, so Kit and I kind of have a little different of a path when it came to jiu-jitsu, and I'll speak to myself, but I know it's similar to Kit. I came from also like Johnny, like a wrestler background. So I was already competing a lot and new competition and there's a lot of similarities between wrestling and jiu-jitsu. So I got my black belt pretty fast. I was just under 5 years because I was competing a lot. So I would do all the top tournaments. I would do nationals, Pan Ams, worlds consistently every year. And I did pretty good. I had a lot of gold medals, and my coaches were kind of professors were kind of forced me up to the next level and up to the next level. So that's, I think, in less than a year, I won world as a blue belt. So that was less than a year of me competing. So that's why I got my purple belt in less than a year of training. And then it took a couple of years in purple and a couple of years in brown to get to my black belt. But I think also because I won worlds, Nogi worlds as a brown belt, it helped me to get to a black belt. So I think competition, when you add a lot of competitions, it makes you just makes you get so much more experience than just going to just training every day. So I think that's why I got my black belt pretty fast. And that's what I always tell my friends. I'm like, if you have access to go to competitions, go. Because to me, it's like 3 months of training, one competition. It translates to that because there's so many more things that you learn. When you get tapped out in a competition, you're going to learn that. When you get tapped out in practice, it might take like 30 times for you to learn that escape. But in a competition, it sticks with you. So that's my experience.
Yeah, let's had a question really quick. Then we're gonna get to Kit. Go ahead.
Oh, my question is, do you guys participate in NABJJF?
Oh,
Did you say NBJJF or IBJJF?
NABJJF.
I don't. Tabron, is that what my brother did?
No, that's
NABJJF.
Jake guy. This one, Jal Silva's tournament circuit.
I haven't competed in those tournaments, but again, I think every single tournament is take advantage of them. Do as many as you can. You learn so much faster when competing than without competing.
Same with me. I have not done that, but I'm a big advocate of competing as best as can. You will excel when you compete.
Oh. And Mr. Kit.
Yeah, Paul said exactly, like very similar story to mine. I was already playing professional Australian rules football. I was already getting paid to play that. I was representing First Division. I played Interleague. I played the Vic East representative side, which are just like, they basically take like the best players from the league, and then you go into a next level where you play other leagues, and then they take the best players out of that, and then you play state. And so I was playing that level. I had some promising opportunities to play like very high level football in Australia, but I decided that I liked jiu-jitsu a little bit better because of the opportunities on a world scale, and I liked martial arts better than football. So there was a lot that I went to jiu-jitsu, like I went straight into jiu-jitsu with already very like access to very good coaches from football. I already learned so much about learning. So I excelled really quickly in jiu-jitsu, and I was similar to Paul. So I got my black belt in about 4 years. And I was the same with Paul. I competed a lot. I competed and I was traveling the world competing. So you feel like what Paul said, every competition feels like an extra 3 months of experience. So that 4 years for me really felt like 10 years because I did so much competing. I traveled to train with very good people, and I was always very thoughtful with my training. I was always, I don't like getting beaten in anything. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't like losing. So anytime I'm losing something, I'm trying to figure out what I need to do to learn from that. Like what Johnny was saying with trial and error, which I'm a huge believer in. That's the best way of learning anything. I would just allow myself to make mistakes and learn from it. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. The only time it's a problem is when you're not learning from your mistakes. But if you just keep doing like Johnny said, and you keep taking risks, making mistakes, learn from it, eventually your success is going to come, because there is no straight line for success. There's no, step A, B, and C, and D. If you do these perfectly, you're going to be successful. It doesn't work in any area of life. It's very different for everyone. What you've just got to keep doing is working hard and just keep trying and trying and trying. And as much as you can, learn from the things that haven't worked yet. And I think if you do that long enough, in my experience, you're going to be successful in anything. And it's something I wanted to say before in one of the earlier questions, but basically I think the most important thing, if I can tell you guys anything right now, is that the most important thing for being successful in something is, first of all, believing in yourself. And it's not always easy to believe in yourself. And that's why I like martial arts, because it creates an environment for you to develop that belief. But if you believe in yourself enough, you will take the necessary steps to become successful. If you don't believe in yourself, let's say you're looking at competition, you're like, I don't think I deserve to win this. I don't think I'm going to win this. Well, then you're probably not going to put in the effort required to actually win this. And a little thing that I would do, which is similar to the visualizations, is I would do affirmations, which I would sit in front of a mirror and I tell myself something that I really want to believe. It could be like Muhammad Ali's, I am the greatest. It could be anything. A lot of the time I would sit in the mirror and I would be like, I am a black belt world champion. I am a black belt world champion. I hadn't even won the black belt world championships. I might not have even won the purple belt world championships, but I just kept saying it until I convinced my brain that that's what I'm worthy of. And then I started taking the necessary steps and putting in the hard work to achieve that. And then it naturally happens like that. But I feel like it's really important to convince yourself and really believe in yourself, because it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, you can become successful, but you just got to do the work for it to happen.
Thank you so much, man. All these words have been very inspirational. That was, I mean, I couldn't have said it better. And we're coming to that end, but I want to thank you guys for your time. You know, our door is always welcome. I've told you guys about these kids, and I'm glad you guys given us some of your time to give them these words of encouragement. And, you know, the three of you guys, all jiu-jitsu black belts. I've met you guys because of jiu-jitsu. I'm always speaking highly of jiu-jitsu to the kids, and them getting a chance to see and hear from other successful guys of what jiu-jitsu does to help in that success is awesome. So we thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And you guys know to the dojo and get on the mats, and Yadis is gonna roll you up.
Yeah. Our pleasure, guys. Listen, wishing you guys all the best. Thank you, Tay Brent, for inviting us, and it was our pleasure doing it.
You guys were really awesome. I'm gonna give it to one person, Paul. Paul, if you don't mind, we do a words of wisdom for our kids. We replay this on YouTube. So
I'm so sorry. I just had a meeting come over. Is it cool if I either I could rush out or I could send a video to do it? Is that possible?
Sure.
Is that all right? I just had I had a 3 o'clock.
Go handle it, brother. We got it. Go handle it. You got business to take
all the
care
best,
of.
everybody.
Thank you for everything.
Thanks for having us, and I'll send a video. Take
Yes,
care, bud.
sir. Thank you.
Bye.
Paul, your last words of wisdom, something our kids could take with them, something that they can use going forward in life.
For sure. This was a big aha moment for me when I heard it, and I wish someone would have told me this when I was younger, that we all suffer through injustices and unfairness in life, and we've all had it. Literally every single person I've had has suffered from a terrible injustice. And a thing that I truly believe is a saying, I don't know who said it, but whoever it was, he was really wise, is 10% of life is what happens to us, and 90% is how we choose to react to it. And we're all gonna suffer through injustices, but it's our choice on how we choose to react. So I'm a big believer in that. And then every time something that's unfair happens to me, it's like, I can't control it. It already happened to me. But what I can control is my actions to that. So I love that saying. Every time I'm sad, I think about that, and it changes how I react to certain circumstances.
Man, wow. That I got goosebumps just listening to you say that. That was awesome. Can I give you 30 seconds, Kip? Same thing. Words of encouragement, something our kids could take away from this video conference. Something that we can post that they can continue to hear on our website.
Okay, but Paul really good. He's
he did absolutely crushed.
He ruined it for me. I was going to say exactly that. I honestly, I think with life, the most important thing is to do it in a way that you enjoy. I always tell this to people. I say, listen, if money were no object, how would you spend your life? And I would tell you to go and do that thing, because if you start doing things to make money or things that don't bring you joy, you're going to spend your life completely wasting your time. As Alan Watts says, it's better to have a short life full of things that you enjoy doing than a long life suffering. So I would tell people, find out what it is you like doing and create a life built around that, and you're going to have a very happy one. And to elaborate on the one quote that I think is really important, which touches down on what Paul said before, Rumi said this: yesterday I was clever, so I tried to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. I think the most important thing for everyone is to build from the inside and change yourself to be a better person rather than trying to change everything else.
Wow.
That is awesome. And I got some breaking news, you guys. Officer Lear has said, Paul, when you show up to the dojo, he's going to come in a unicorn leotard to learn all of the vast and these skills. You motivated him such that he's going to get his thing called jiu-jitsu a try in a unicorn leader turn. So we look forward to that, kids, right? See you guys
Not a problem. You guys got me excited. I don't know about our kids, but you guys got me excited. Put me in, coach. Put me in. I'm ready.
I knew you guys could do it. Well, once
Thank you
again, thank you
guys.
guys for your time, and we really appreciate it so much, man. Words can not really describe. So look forward to seeing you guys again, and thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Hey guys.
See you later.
Ureli, I like your wallpaper, Ureli.
Thank you.
Good seeing you, Derek.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, officers.
Bye.
See you, Alvin. Alvin.
That was great, guys.
It's good.